Ladies and gentlemen, well, I'm going to talk about the agreement, but I'm also going to talk a little bit about the Denmark and the Kingdom of Denmark and what we're doing within the Arctic and when it comes to science and higher education. I'm from the Danish Agency for Science and Higher Education, so that's going to be sort of my scope for the talk today. So just to get everybody up to speed when it comes to Denmark and the Kingdom of Denmark and what it actually is, we have, I come from Denmark, which is the small red dot at the bottom of the map there. And the Kingdom of Denmark consists then of the three parts. Denmark, the Faroe Islands, which is seen by the red circle, and then Greenland at the top. So obviously the Kingdom of Denmark as a whole is quite large and is an Arctic player, but you will see also that Denmark in itself does not seem to be very Arctic. But I'll come back to why we think we are in a moment. But I'd like to point also to the ratio between area and population, especially for the Greenlandic part, because it is quite interesting. Now I should mention that today I speak on behalf of the government of Denmark and not on behalf of neither the Faroe Islands or Greenland, because it is such that a lot of the policy development and policies and the government of affairs is taken back to the different parts of the kingdom. So Greenland and the Faroes are responsible, for example, for science and education and a lot of other stuff. Some of the only things that are still governed by Copenhagen or by Denmark is things like foreign policies, security issues, and stuff like that. Okay, so a couple of years back in 2011, the Kingdom of Denmark, so all three parts of the kingdom, developed their strategy for the Arctic. And you'll see a couple of key points within that strategy. Nothing mind-blowing, but it's still nice to notice, at least, that we plan to engage in a peaceful, secure, and safe Arctic, focus on sustainable growth and development, respect for the Arctic fragile climate, environment, and nature, and then relevant for the party here today also, close cooperation with our international partners. And I'm going to get back to how we do that. A couple of years back in 2016, the ministry that I represent launched our own strategy for research and education concerning the Arctic. And we have three pillars that we work around. So concerning research and education, and we want to promote research and education in and about the Arctic of high quality and relevance for society. We want to promote Denmark as a strong Arctic player and as an international collaborator and partner. And then, of course, we want to pursue a responsible and sustainable social development of the Arctic region. Now, just to look at some of the research profile and the output from the Kingdom of Denmark when it comes to research, we've made some analysis on bibliometrics a couple of years back, and you'll see that the Kingdom of Denmark is responsible for about 2% of the global production of Arctic research. Here it's shown as the number of publications within the time frame 2013 to 16. So we are producing quite a bit of Arctic research when you think about how small the research community actually is. But maybe more interesting here also is how specialized our research profile is. So you'll see that the Kingdom of Denmark is highly specialized when it comes to Arctic research. So if you kind of translate that into other terms, it means that quite a large part of our total publication of articles and research are in fact related to the Arctic. So if we continue to look at the production and the output, you will see here, hope it's, you can read it, but on your left-hand side, you can see the bars that represent the different fields, and the largest parts are natural sciences and the technical science and engineering, and I'll come back to how that translates in some of the things that we're doing. And if you look to the other graph, you will see that the share of publications with collaborations in the same time period, and the gray bar that goes up is the number of articles in percent with international collaboration. So for the Kingdom of Denmark, you'll see that we're up about 80% of the total production of our research, which is done in international collaboration. So we feel very much that international collaboration is part of our research DNA and very much part of what we do. Now, I'd like to just take a glance at Greenland again and just try to point at some of the infrastructure and some of the assets that we have operating within the Arctic as we know it within the Kingdom of Denmark. So we have different assets and different universities engaged within within Greenland. At University of Copenhagen has 3 Arctic research stations in Greenland. One of them is actually a mobile one, which is the one in the middle of Greenland. I'll show you a picture later, which is related to the group within Copenhagen University that does ice core drillings, and they drill the ice cores from the Greenland ice sheet and have done so for many years. And the blue square points to a town called Sisimiut, which is our technical university in Denmark. They have developed a number of Arctic programs, educational programs, to strengthen their own education and their own Arctic profile, but also to strengthen the youth of Greenland, give them the opportunity to take some very relevant and very usable and industry-oriented education. So that's mainly within Arctic engineering, and I'll come back to that a little later also. Worth to mention also in the gray box that we have some major research facility also in Greenland by the Greenlandic government themselves, so the University of Greenland, the Greenlandic Institute of Natural Resources, and the Climate Research Center, all based in Nuuk. And that's also where we have the Joint Arctic Command, which is let's say the military arm of the Kingdom of Denmark in Greenland. And on the other side of the slide, you'll see some of the assets that is present in the Arctic. Now, this is not to showcase military assets as such, but the reason that we have them within our talk is that they actually support the Arctic, our research community quite a lot, and have researchers and are part of research programs in the Arctic with ships and with planes, and also with our dog sled patrols that patrol the northeastern part of Greenland. So I mentioned earlier that we very much welcome and see ourselves as an international player for Arctic research, and we have done quite a bit to promote this and are trying to reach out to the research communities beyond the Kingdom of Denmark. And we have developed quite a specific tool to do this. It's called Apphic, which means the great door in Greenlandic. And it's basically a website that we're promoting as a sort of a dating site for researchers. So the concept and the idea is that the individual researcher can put forward their ideas for research in Greenland or anywhere else in the Arctic as an open database for other people to see and then connect directly with that person and share ideas and even collaborate on research. Another part of it is also that it is possible to put out your research plans and also your plans to charter ships or planes, which can be expensive, and you may have additional room or free space for other researchers, and you can then look up the assets that are available and piggyback on researchers that are already planning trips in the area that might be interesting to you. So it's a very hands-on and useful tool for anyone who's interested in going to Greenland or within the Arctic region to connect with people that are doing the same. I've put some flyers in the foyer for exactly this website. So it's very easy to sign up and become part of the community. We are also in the process of reaching out to more international partners so we can get a more full picture of what's going on. The other part I want to mention is that we've established quite a small booklet with some of the most interesting research cases that are being done within the Arctic and in Greenland. I've also put a couple of issues of that outside if you want to read. So, getting back to international collaboration and cooperation. So, I had the opportunity to be head of delegation for the Kingdom of Denmark when we negotiated this agreement. And I think we negotiated for about 3 years to get this agreement signed after 3 years. And I think one of the reasons for this was that our mandate that originated from the Kiruna Declaration was quite vague in the sense what exactly was our task within the group, what was it that we were meant to deliver. So we did use quite a bit of time to educate ourselves on what was needed for the Arctic and for the research community. But we did, after 3 years of negotiating and talking, come up with a legally binding instrument, but with some caveats, I will say. I'll come back to that in a minute. So, but the aim of the agreement is facilitating Arctic activities with the purpose to increase effectiveness and efficiency in the development of scientific knowledge about the Arctic. Now, already in that statement, we have a couple of words that may not be hard to handle in a legally binding instrument. At least what does facilitating mean, which is also defined within the agreement. So it is very much an oath to do the best you can in order to promote cooperation and get things done. So that's when it comes to Arctic activities. It is worth noting that the agreement had to be developed and had to live within the constraint of existing national law and national procedures. So this means that the agreement could not have as an effect that other countries had to change their laws. So it had to exist within existing frameworks. So already there you see that the effect is somewhat limited. The second thing was that it was clear from the start that the agreement could not be an economic burden for the countries, so it had to be an agreement that kind of was neutral in the sense of economics. So there you have two facets of an agreement, legally binding instrument that kind of limits it very much. Having said that, it's also worth noting that the area of focus for the agreement is very much all things related to research. So it's not just the project, it's also exchange of students and scholars and researchers, education and access to research data, research areas, and also involving traditional and local knowledge, which has an article in itself within the agreement. So the agreement entered into force in May of 2018, and it is stated within the agreement that within a year from the entering into force of the agreement, the depositor for the agreement shall hold the first meeting for a review process. And Denmark is the depositor for the agreement, so we are in the midst of planning how to follow up and how to review the agreement. So the review process is obviously mainly concerning the parties to the agreement. That is the first thing. So the signatories for the agreement is the Arctic 8 countries, and they are the ones that are at first hand bound by the agreement. But it's also stated within the agreement that we want non-Arctic states, observers, international organizations that are relevant to Arctic research present in this review process to get a full dialogue going about where the barriers are, what are the problems, and how should this agreement be effectful and actually facilitate more international cooperation. So some of the questions that we are asking or going to be answering in the process of reviewing this agreement is how are the different nations, at least the Arctic 8, implementing this agreement nationally? What have they done? What have they done to kind of communicate with their research communities and make sure that the agreement is known? And also, how are other agencies and other areas of ministers been involved in the implementation of this agreement? So that's the part for the Arctic 8, but it is also relevant to see how the agreement, how we can make it effective and efficient and secure a global impact, because we know that we are not the only ones doing Arctic research, so it's very much a part also to make sure that the agreement has a global impact. And what we're going to focus on, I think, for the first couple of years of reviewing this is also where are the main barriers for Arctic research? What is it that we need to facilitate more within the nations that are bound by this agreement? What can we do better and how can we do it? And exactly how should we go about this? I think we are already in communication with many actors and many research groups about what is the barriers for Arctic research, and I think we already kind of taken stock of what the issues are, and we're going to discuss them on this very first meeting. So the idea is that it was the agreement was made within the framework of the Arctic Council. Now it is signed, it has come into effect. So as such, it is taken, let's say, out of the auspice of the Arctic Council and has now a life of its own. So it's also important to discuss what do we do a year from now and 2 years from now and 5 years from now? What should be the setup for this agreement? And we also want to report back to the CEOs and the ministers and communicate to them what we're actually doing and how this agreement is actually making a difference. So all these issues we need to discuss. And we've looked at when to do this, and I believe that we are aiming at a first meeting on 11 March, just the days before the first SAO meetings of 2019. So that's when we're going to meet and discuss for the first time, and then we'll report back to the SAOs so they can take stock of what we've done. And my last point, of course, is that we are fully aware that this agreement does not just pertain to the Arctic 8, and we are also very much aware that this is also an issue for the non-Arctic states, and we are going to be aware of this in the process. Looking forward for the Kingdom of Denmark and for Denmark in itself, we are also looking at what's going to happen in the next couple of years. And within our latest strategy for foreign policy, the Arctic is one of 6 focus areas, and there's a number of points within that strategy that is very much in the line of the talks that we'd heard here today. Economic growth in Greenland is very much a priority. Innovation and entrepreneurship for the youth of Greenland is going to be something we want to focus on. And I know that we are working heavily on developing better ice and weather services, which is relevant also for the shipping and tourist industry that want to operate in the Arctic. And this also comes back a little bit to the military assets and what we're doing around Greenland, because we do have the responsibility for search and rescue around Greenland, and I think at all times the military has about 3 ships cruising Greenlanding. So assets and knowledge about where the ice is and what the weather conditions are crucial to avoid dangerous situation and make sure that we have situational awareness. So better ice and weather service is very much a key to this. Then we are developing an international Arctic hub in Greenland, which is the latest kind of idea that we are working on. This is very much a collaboration between the government of Denmark and the government of Greenland. So what we're thinking is that we want to establish a focal point for research in Greenland. So try to establish a platform, a physical space that kind of is going to be the hub for science in Greenland. We want to have a very strong focus on international partners and develop kind of a place for international partners to reach out to get better knowledge of who's doing what in Greenland, what kind of research is being done, how can we interlock with the research community. And we're also going to focus very much on dissemination and making the research done in Greenland more relevant and benefit the Arctic population better. So dissemination and knowledge sharing and with the local community and having them involved in research projects earlier than they are today is going to be a very strong focus for us also. And if all goes well, we will begin this adventure in 2019. And I think that's it for me. Thank you.